Okay, let's be real for a second. Dating is, well, it's objectively terrifying.
It really is.
I don't care how confident you are. You're
Yeah.
sitting across from a stranger, trying to be charming, wondering if you have, spinach in your
Or
teeth.
if you're talking too much or not enough, it's a universal stress test.
It's basically a job interview where the job is being loved.
It is. It's a performance. And for most people, that performance anxiety is just sort of background noise.
Right. It's annoying, but you manage it. You just push through.
You push through. Exactly. But today, we're looking at what happens when you crank that volume knob all the way up.
We're talking about dating for autistic adults, where the stakes and the stressors are they're operating on an entirely different frequency.
And the friction isn't just, oh, I'm a bit nervous. It's biological. It's sensory. It's, systemic.
We have this fascinating guide in front of us today from the Hey ASD editorial team. It's called Autism-Friendly Date Ideas That Actually Work.
And it's so much more than a list.
Oh, absolutely. I want to be clear right up front. This isn't just a list of quiet restaurants. If you really read between the lines here, this is a strategic framework for completely rethinking human connection.
That is the key.
Yeah.
Because if you treat this piece as just, a travel guide, you miss the entire point. The source is arguing for a fundamental shift in the goal of a date.
A shift from what to what?
From social performance, masking, trying to impress, acting like the cool girl or the suave guy. It argues for shifting the goal to sensory comfort.
Because you can't connect with another human being if your nervous system is in fight or flight mode.
You literally can't. Which brings us to the first big friction point the guide talks about. The classic date, dinner, and a movie, or, let's grab a drink at a crowded bar, is often a recipe for disaster.
So why is that? Why does that classic date fail so hard in this context?
It all comes down to processing load. The source really breaks this into three main barriers. You've got sensory overload, social nuance, and, of course, anxiety.
Okay, so let's take that drinks at a bar scenario.
Okay, so to a neurotypical brain, a bar is lively, it's fun. To an autistic brain, especially one that might struggle with sensory gating, it's an assault.
It's that inability to tune things out, right?
Exactly. It's often called the cocktail party problem. Most brains have this filter that can kind of dampen the background noise so you can focus on one voice. But many autistic brains treat every single sound, the ice in the shaker, the laugh 3 tables away, the hum of the fridge, with equal importance.
So you're not just listening to your date.
No, you're processing 1,000 streams of data at the same time. While you're trying to figure out if your date is joking, your brain is also analyzing the flicker of the neon sign and the smell of the bartender's cologne.
Which sounds completely exhausting.
It is. And that leads right into the second barrier, social nuance. On a traditional dinner date, you're seated face-to-face.
Interrogation setup.
Exactly. It creates this intense demand for sustained eye contact and a continuous back-and-forth conversation.
Tell me about yourself. Now look me in the eye while you do it.
Right. And if you struggle with nonverbal cues like, what does a raised eyebrow mean? Or that subtle shift in tone, having to do that in real time while staring someone in the eyes is just draining.
You burn out before the appetizer even arrives.
Totally. You spend so much energy just decoding the signals that you have no energy left to actually feel anything.
And then on top of all that, you layer the anxiety of the unknown.
Right. Unpredictability is the enemy. What if the food is weird? What if the music is too loud? That anxiety just consumes the bandwidth you should be using to fall in love.
So if spontaneity is out and the dinner interrogation is out, what's the alternative? The Hey ASD guide proposes what I'd call a holy trinity for date planning.
Yes, the date needs to be 3 things. Low-key, structured, and controlled.
Let's unpack structured because, I don't know, a structured date sounds a bit dry, a little like a business meeting.
I get that, but the guide suggests this actually frees you up. Think of structure as a safety net. If you know exactly what's going to happen, you don't have to waste energy scanning for threats. You can actually be present.
When the logistics are solved, the mind is free to connect.
That's it.
Okay, so let's get into the date menu they provide because some of these are really clever. They seem to lean heavily on a concept called parallel play. What is that?
So parallel play is originally a developmental concept. You see it in toddlers, where kids play alongside each other rather than directly with each other.
Okay.
In dating terms, it means doing an activity where your attention is on a third thing, not just on each other. So take the movie night suggestion, either in a cinema or at home.
Which is a classic date, sure. But most people say movies are bad first dates because you can't talk.
Exactly. And that is precisely why it works here. You're sharing an experience, watching the same story unfold, but the social demand is basically zero. You don't have to talk.
Or make eye contact.
Right.
Yeah.
You're together, but your focus is triangulated onto the screen. It just removes all that pressure to perform.
The guide also mentions this can be a good setting for physical affection, but it has a huge asterisk next to it about consent.
A crucial point. The source is so clear on this. Never assume. Even in a dark movie theater, the rule is explicit verbal checking. Is this okay? Can I put my arm around you?
So it removes the guessing game.
Which is a huge source of anxiety. It creates a low-pressure setting where touch is possible, but only if it's explicitly agreed upon.
I found the virtual tours idea really interesting, like exploring the Louvre from your laptop. My first thought was, is that really a date? Just scrolling a website?
I think we have to reframe it. It's not just scrolling, it's exploration without risk. I mean,
Okay.
think about how stressful travel is. Airports, crowds, strange smells. A virtual tour lets you share that wonder of discovery. Oh, look at that painting. But you're in total control of the environment.
And you can bail instantly if it gets boring.
Exactly. You're in the safety of your own home. It's about shared intellectual intimacy without the sensory tax.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about sharing a headspace, not just a physical space. Speaking of which, the guide talks a lot about sensory delights. This is where we get into things like nature walks.
These are my favorites in the guide. They leverage something that psychologists call soft fascination.
Soft fascination. That sounds lovely.
It is. So hard fascination is when you have to concentrate intensely, like doing a spreadsheet. It drains you. Soft fascination is nature. Rustling leaves, water flowing. It holds your attention but doesn't demand effort. It actually restores your cognitive function.
So a walk in the woods isn't just nice, it's actually recharging the battery that social interaction usually drains.
Precisely. The Hey ASD team specifically mentions the sounds, the birds, the wind, as naturally regulating. And again, you're walking side by side on a trail.
No eye contact pressure.
None. You're looking at the path, not staring at each other.
The aquarium suggestion also really stuck out to me. The source calls it mesmerizing.
Well, think about the sensory input. It's visual, but it's slow. It's all blue hues, gliding sharks, floating jellyfish. It's basically nature's visual white noise.
That's calming.
Deeply calming. Standing in front of a giant tank gives you this shared focal point. It facilitates conversation because you're both relaxed, not because you're forcing it.
It's the total opposite of the noisy bar. The bar amps you up, the aquarium winds you down.
A 180-degree difference.
Okay, so for people who want to actually do something, the guide suggests structured activity dates, museums and classes.
Yeah.
But there's a really specific detail about museums that seems vital.
Off-peak hours. This is like non-negotiable.
So not Saturday afternoon.
Never Saturday afternoon. A museum on a Saturday is a sensory, nightmare-echoing halls, screaming kids, crowds. A museum on a Tuesday morning is a sanctuary.
It's quiet, it's structured.
Yes. You follow the path, read the plaque, move to the next one. The activity directs the flow, so you don't have to wonder, what do we do now?
And for the creative side, they suggested art and pottery classes.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically pottery painting. Why that one?
Because it's highly structured, but still allows for self-advocacy through expression. You're making choices. This color, that design, which communicates who you are. But more importantly, it gives your hands something to do.
So if the conversation lulls.
It's not awkward silence, it's just working silence. You go back to painting your mug, it fills the gaps.
That's a recurring theme, isn't it? Removing the awkwardness of the void. Which brings us to the routine-based dates. Picnics and cooking.
This is such a fascinating insight. You'd think a picnic is spontaneous, but the guide highlights the routine of it, the packing.
The preparation.
Yes, for many autistic adults, rituals are incredibly soothing. Selecting the snacks, packing the blanket, organizing the basket. That process grounds you. It's a checklist.
And then the walk to the spot helps burn off some of that initial anxiety.
Right. By the time you sit down, you've already accomplished a mission together.
And cooking together is the same idea. It clarifies the roles.
Exactly. You chop the onions, I'll sauté the garlic. It turns the day into a collaborative project. Your teammates working toward a delicious goal.
So we have all these great activities, but the guide makes a huge point that none of it matters if the environment is hostile. We have to talk logistics.
Location, location, location. The golden rule here is avoid surprises.
So, no, I'm taking you to a mystery location, put on this blindfold.
Oh, absolutely not. That is terrifying. You want venues that offer security and predictability. The source suggests bookstores or botanical gardens.
Places where quiet is the norm.
Exactly. The environment does the volume control for you.
Okay, but what about a home date? This is where the guide gets really specific. He talks about home date optimization. And we aren't just talking about dimming the lights.
No, we're talking about equipment. Curating a sensory safe zone. The guide explicitly mentions things like weighted lap pads, sensory blankets, even tagless t-shirts.
Tagless t-shirts.
Yeah.
That seems like such a tiny detail.
To a neurotypical person, maybe? But for someone with sensory processing issues, a scratching tag can feel like being poked with a needle over and over. It's a low-level irritant that just eats away at your patience. It contributes to what's called cumulative load.
Cumulative load.
Imagine your stress is a bucket. The loud noise adds a cup. The flickering light adds a cup. That scratching tag adds another cup. Eventually, the bucket overflows.
So by removing the tag, you keep the water level lower.
You do. So if you're hosting, offering a weighted blanket isn't just about being cozy. It's a tool to downregulate their nervous system. You are actively saying, I want you to feel safe enough to be yourself here.
And safety is the prerequisite for connection.
Always. You cannot be vulnerable if you don't feel safe.
Let's shift to the software of the date, the human interaction. The guide mentions the hidden curriculum of dating.
Which can feel like a spy novel if you don't have the decoder ring. The hidden curriculum is just all those unwritten social rules that neurotypical people seem to absorb by osmosis.
Like knowing when it's time to leave or how to signal you're interested.
All of that. Read the room. Well, what if you can't read the room? The guide suggests this shouldn't be a guessing game. It advocates for practice. It even cites a resource called the Autistic Adult Group at Open Doors Therapy.
So it's basically a workshop for dating logic.
Yes, they role-play scenarios. What do you do when the check comes? How do you politely decline a second date? It turns the terrifying unknown into a rehearsed skill. It creates a script for the unscripted world.
That's so practical. It treats dating like a skill you can learn, not some talent you're just born with. Now, what about communication? The guide advocates for a level of directness that, frankly, I think everyone could benefit from.
It starts with disclosure, the whole do I tell them question. The source notes it's deeply personal, and it strongly argues for disclosing your sensory needs regardless of any label.
So even if you don't say, I'm autistic, you do say, I can't do loud noises.
Precisely. I really struggle with crowds. Can we go somewhere quiet? You have to advocate for your own physiology. Otherwise, you're just white-knuckling the date instead of enjoying it.
And this directness extends to consent and boundaries.
Oh, the guide is adamant here. So much of neurotypical dating is full of, the chase, playing hard to get, double meanings. This guide basically says, drop all of that.
It's the death of the game.
It is. And it's so refreshing. If you want to hold hands, you ask. If you want to leave, you say you need to leave. Ambiguity is the enemy of anxiety. Clarity is kindness.
But even with perfect planning, perfect clarity, sometimes it just doesn't work out. The guide touches on rejection.
It does. And for autistic adults who might have a history of social exclusion, rejection can feel catastrophic, like it confirms you're broken.
So how does the guide suggest reframing that?
It explicitly says, rejection is not a reflection of worth. It's just data. It means the match wasn't right. And then it suggests real coping strategies. Talk to a friend, engage in self-care, and this is key focus on your personal interests.
Go back to the things that ground you.
Yes. If the date goes badly, you go home and dive into your favorite video game or your coding project. You recenter yourself in a world where you are competent and in control, and you remind yourself that you are a complete person with or without a second date.
As we zoom out here, we've gone through all these ideas, the nature walks, the quiet museums, clear consent, honest communication. And I'm struck by something.
What's that?
This doesn't just sound like special accommodations. It just sounds like a better way to date for everyone.
It really does, doesn't it?
I mean, even if you're neurotypical, wouldn't you also prefer a date where you can actually hear the other person? Wouldn't you prefer someone asking, can I kiss you? Instead of just awkwardly lunging at your face.
That's the unmasking concept the source touches on. We spend so much energy trying to fit this mold of what a cool date is supposed to look like. Trendy, loud, spontaneous. But is that actually what connects us?
It feels like we've confused excitement with anxiety.
That's a profound way to put it. We think that butterflies in the stomach, which is often a stress response, is the only indicator of romance. This guide suggests that maybe safety is the indicator of romance.
So if we just stripped away all the pressure to maintain eye contact or sit in a loud restaurant or play hard to get,
how many more people would actually enjoy the process of finding a partner?
It really challenges the assumption that these accommodations are just for one person. Maybe the autistic-friendly date is just the human-friendly date we've all been too afraid to ask for.
I think you're spot on. Clarity, comfort, and structure. They aren't weaknesses. They're the foundation of real intimacy.
Something to think about next time you're planning a night out. Whether you're on the spectrum or not, maybe skip the loud bar and try the aquarium. Thanks for diving in with us.
My pleasure.